Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the school budget meeting to order. Today is May 13th, 2025, and we are beginning our budget meeting tonight at 5:04 p.m. And I think everybody knows that this is a very difficult process. I think everybody's aware of the financial concerns and situation that we're in, and it's not just PBD, it's everywhere. There are a number of cities and towns, in fact, I can't think of one that is not, looking at their budgets the same way we are, and they're going to have to make some very difficult decisions and over the next few meetings. So I'm happy to get into certainly detail as to what has brought us here. Certainly can start with the fact that our health insurance went up 14.19%, which was by far the biggest health insurance increase in city history by significant amount, and that's just one factor in a whole number of factors that have brought us to this point. So I know we got some difficult decisions. This is going to be a budget. We're going to have to make some difficult choices, but choices will have to be made to this budget. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Vidala, and happy to answer any questions, give any further updates that I may have to share. But why don't we turn it over to you, Dr. Vidala, and we can start the process.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Betancourt. So I just wanted to provide a quick recap, and then we can kind of get into this, provide a little bit of context and where we're at. Obviously, this is going to be a tough budget season, and we're going to work together to try to make the best decisions we can under the circumstances. So this is a slide that was presented back in April, and just sort of talking about how did we get here from last year. Starting at the $94 million that we had voted last year. The biggest increase that we saw was the health insurance of $2.5 million. Special ed tuitions are $800,000. Our new transportation contract increased of $600,000. And then we have our obligated steps and lanes, which is about $950,000. Last year we had put some funds into the shelter. Some of our budget we had been able to offset through shelter funds. Unfortunately, those are coming off the line. That's about $500,000. The impact of negotiations will bring us up another $2 million, and then of course the center school coming back to full capacity is about $2.25 million. So all in, a level service budget this year with all of these increases in the center school coming back is just over $104 million. As we talked about before, the Chapter 70 funds and the money that we're receiving from the state, the anticipated number of $98.6 million might actually be a little bit less than that, but that's sort of the first target that we're shooting for. And so assuming that in the current level service budget of $104.2 million, we're looking at a $5.6 million deficit. So level service includes that level service plus the center school. And this was the next steps that were recommended at the last meeting. We talked about identifying the elementary school reductions based on the projected enrollment numbers, and then other areas of reduction. And so before we begin, I just want to say, obviously budget reductions are never easy. Over the past 5 years that I've been the superintendent, this committee has done a really good job of adding structures and supports for students and identifying creative ways to offset the budget and to try to minimize the impact. And this year, I think the reductions are going to affect all levels and things across the district. So I think of these things as really 4 areas. We have the elementary level, the middle and high school levels. If we take them separately, that's 1, 2, 3. And then sort of district-wide and non-salary being the 4th bucket. All 4 of those areas are going to be hit. We're going to need to reduce across all areas in order to reach this number of 5.6 million that we're shooting for. And what I've prepared tonight and shared via email is the elementary reductions. I'd like to start with elementary and going back to some of the staffing levels that we had prior to this year. And looking at this, I wanted to prioritize the elementary reductions because of the center school coming back online. It's really important that we start the process with the staff. And in order to start the transfer process with the staff, we do need to know what are the other positions available. For example, if there is a teacher who is at the South or the Carroll School where we added classrooms, before we offer the position back at the center or the option to stay, we want to make sure that we are very clear with how many classrooms are at each level. So I want to make sure that we prioritize elementary, and then in our subsequent meetings and later tonight, we can talk about middle and high school reductions, as well as things that we have district-wide and some of the non-salary options that we have. So that's really all I have for the presentation. I figure the next portion would sort of be a working session with the committee and some questions and answers. Dr. Higgins provided a document which was also emailed to you. And so starting with the elementary schools, as you know, we have elementary homerooms at each school, and there's a number of homerooms per grade, and that's across the district. And then we have support staff and instructional support, professional staff that serves as instructional support. This school year, we have 132 elementary homerooms across the district. In this current budget, we have 144. And so there's an additional 12, because I kept the level services of the 132 that we have, plus the 12 for the center school. So when we start with that, we can look to reduce some of those classrooms and identify those areas based on the class sizes. When we proposed this budget, I added 2 specialist teachers. As you know, last year we were able to reduce 2 because of the center school coming offline, and we had a retirement and a teacher who moved from music at the elementary level up to the middle school level, so there were 2 less elementary specialists. I've proposed to put the 2 back in this level service budget because that matches the 144. As we comb through this, if we reduce back down to 132 homerooms, we do believe that we could survive next year without those 2 specialists. So if I go through this spreadsheet that we have here, I'll go line by line. I'll start with tier 1 and then answer questions, and we'll kind of go in tier 2. And if it's possible tonight, we can identify which of these areas the committee is comfortable with. If we take a vote on that, we'll be able to, I'll work with Mr. Rippon, take those positions out of the budget, reduce the budget by that number. And the way I itemized it was so that the committee can make decisions. You don't have to accept the whole thing in its entirety, but we can take what the committee would like to do for the first step, and then we can make those adjustments. So, beginning with the first line at the Brown Elementary School, there are 2 grades, grades 1 and grade 3 next year, projecting forward. And if you look at the piece behind it, the backup, if we reduce grade 1 and grade 3 from 3 elementary homerooms to 2 elementary homerooms, the impact would be that the class size at grade 1 would be 18, and the class size at grade 3 would be 22. So right now, it's significantly lower in those grades. Happens to be that those grades are a little smaller. So if we reduce those 2 positions, we would keep the class size in that 18 to 22 range. So that would be the first line. The second line that we would look at, and I'll go through the whole first tier, and we'll talk about it. At the Carroll Elementary School, we'd be looking at reducing from the Carroll 5.5 positions. It's 3 general ed teachers in grades K, 3, and 5, 1 ELL teacher, 1 special education teacher, and a kindergarten para. And that would basically bring the Carroll Elementary School back to the staffing levels that we had in each of those areas in the FY24 budget. So we added those positions to the budget this year because the center school came off, they had another 100 kids. Those 100 kids are returning to the center, so reducing those positions would basically bring us back to the level service of the previous year. At the McCarthy School, this year we have 2 reading teachers and 2 guidance counselors. And so those 2 positions we would look to bring back to the center school. And the center school would have their 1 reading teacher and 1 guidance counselor, and the McCarthy would return to their 1 reading teacher and 1 guidance counselor. At the South Elementary School, previously and for several years, the South had 3 teachers at each grade level. This year, with the increase of students, we have 4 general ed teachers at grades 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so we would look to reduce that and return to the staffing levels of 3 homerooms per grade, reducing grades 2, 3, and 5, and then populating the center school with those positions. The West Elementary School has an added position of a grade 1 teacher. Typically, they have 2 homerooms every year per grade, and we added 1 this year with some of the increased students that we had seen, and we would be looking to reduce that to be able to fund the center school coming back online. And I mentioned in our health and PE budget and our performing arts budget, you would see an increase of 1 FTE in each of those. These positions are empty, they're not filled right now, there's no one in those positions. So by reducing them, if we reduce the classrooms, we can still meet the specialists' needs that we have, and we wouldn't have to add those. So that would be a total of 16.5 FTEs and $1.2 million, all encompassing these. I will say that in this section, no one loses a job. No, everybody's just shuffled around the district and has options to attend open positions because we currently have the open positions at the center school, which we're looking to fund. So I'll pause there and answer questions about, I think it would be helpful just to start at the top here and answer any questions that the committee may have on this.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Carpenter.
Thank you. Through the chair, Dr. Vidala, thank you for preparing this. I do recognize that it's a difficult budget and there's going to be hard decisions to make, and I appreciate the description that basically this section that we're talking about doesn't involve anyone's job. Everyone will still keep a job, and you described that some of them will go from one school just over to the center. Could you just clarify for me, does that include at the Carroll the 0.5? Are we leaving a kindergarten without a para with that one?
So we would be going from 5 kindergartens down to 4.
Okay.
So last year in FY24, we had 4 kindergarten teachers with their paras. This year, one of the center school teachers and her para went together, and so the proposal would be to bring them both back together.
So it's the same thing for all of them? So
Correct.
Nobody loses the position,
Nope,
people are just going back?
absolutely, yeah. So that position, they almost go as a team.
Okay.
They went as a team, and the understanding would be that they would come back as a team. They'd be able to stay together. They've worked together for several years.
Okay, thank you.
So, Dr. Vidala, this Tier 1 basically accounts for the center school reopening, and those schools that took on those students then can kind of be returned back
Correct.
to kind of where they were before the students came.
Correct.
And-
And so it's almost all of the positions at the center school, not quite, but these are the easiest of the reductions, and you know, this is sort of the first pass. I think the least impactful, I would say, of all the reductions that we'd be proposing.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. And yeah, Mr. Hockman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Vidala, Mr. Rippon, and whoever else was involved in putting this together, Dr. Higgins, and I'm sure a lot of others. Thank you. I have a preliminary question outside of the budget that we're looking at now, and we're going to take it up later, and I just have a question. We got it in our packet, a update on the 24-25 budget, where we're looking, there's the potential where we're looking for a supplemental budget for this year. Is that through the mayor to whomever is able to respond, is that still something that we're that may occur?
Yes, and so that's on the regular agenda for the regular school committee meeting, but briefly, it's health insurance. So it would be to fund the health insurance balance, and we're working with the mayor and Mike Gingras on that. And then the number that is in this current budget right sizes it to make it right moving forward.
So with that, to the mayor, does that, if there is a need for a supplemental budget, does that impact the 96 million? What was the number that we were, 98.6? Does that impact that, or is that still a target we can expect will remain?
I had trouble getting to that number. So that's the number, yeah.
No, I understand that, but even if the supplemental comes forward, 98.6 is still
Yes.
a reasonable, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. So through you to, again, whomever, I understand that this Tier 1 grouping, with the exception of the specialists in the bottom line, is really just a return, as if the center school had always been online, and we're just returning positions back to that school. And no one would lose a job that doesn't want to lose a job, and all those things, which is important. I didn't have a chance to talk to Mr. Olympio or someone else with better accounting principles than I do. I don't understand how, if we're not, we didn't fund these positions for the center school for 24, 25. We're taking these positions out of the various elementary schools, but not eliminating them. We're putting them into the center school. How does this calculate into a budget reduction?
So right now, they're budgeted twice. So we do have 12 positions, actually more than that, at the center school. So if you went to tab 4 at the center school, you'll see that there are 24.5 FTEs there. But in the backup, there's no people. They're just placeholders with salaries. And so basically, these will be replaced by those. And so we'll reduce by this number. So they're budgeted twice, basically.
So the budget proposal that we received of 104 million and change includes staffing for the center school, because you expected that we were going to be reopening, and they're duplicated essentially within the other schools' budgets.
Correct. So the other schools, we left level funded as if there were going to be no changes because we didn't have the enrollment data yet. And then we put these in as placeholders, anticipating that there would be, but not understanding where the reductions could be until we did the surveys of the families. And now that we have those accurate numbers, we're able to reduce these positions. But I didn't feel comfortable doing it until we knew how many kids were going to be there.
Okay, so I don't view this as a traditional reduction. It's yeah, so I understand better now. Thank you for the explanation. So with these changes in location of personnel, are there going to be any, or do you anticipate any service reductions in any of the schools that would be losing FTEs?
Not in Tier 1, no.
No, not in Tier 1. And then the specialists that you identified, that I think you are in the $104 million budget, but you're saying they're not staffed yet, they hadn't existed previously.
Correct.
Why did you want them?
So I put that in based on 144 homerooms. We would need all those staff members. 2 years ago, we had staffing levels at that level. There were people in those positions, and now we were able to do it with less this year. So I was looking to return to what we had in '24, but since they don't exist and since the numbers are the same, we can adjust some things and have people share buildings, and you know, maybe a person goes 1 day a week to a different building, but we can do it within the current staffing that we have.
So the delta of 12 between the 144 homerooms that are in this proposed budget of 104 million and the 132 homerooms that exist in the 24-25 budget are the 12 homerooms that are at the center school that are duplicated throughout the district.
Correct. Okay. And actually, I think that after this, it's 134. I think it's only a 10 reduction. If you look at the next page, where we had these, there's 12 highlights here.
Yeah.
But I did not include grade 1 at the Carroll or grade 5 at the Welch in this round of reductions. I feel like those numbers are pretty high, and I didn't feel comfortable reducing them just yet. So we took the other 10 and and we decided to pause at that point and not propose those two as well. Knowing that both of those schools have transient populations and receive kids during the year more so than the other schools, I didn't feel comfortable raising the class size in those areas. So we went with 10 instead of 12.
So did you, just so I heard you, I think clearly, you're talking about grade 1 at the Carroll would remain
Would remain at 5.
5,
Would remain at
and
5.
grade 5 at the Welch
Would remain at 3. Correct.
Okay.
Yep, I feel more comfortable with that
Yeah.
at this point. Those are two areas that if we get really into the weeds, we may come back to, but at this point, with those two populations, I just feel like they receive kids throughout the year so often that I don't feel comfortable being that close to class size limits.
Sure. So while we're looking at this page, so we don't have to flip back and forth, and I'll just express my thoughts on this before we move on. I've looked at class sizes, and you identified 2 classes that I was concerned about, or grade levels at schools that I was concerned about. Grade 1 at the Brown, grade 2 at the Brown, grade 2 at the Burke, grade 2 at the Welch, grade 2 at the West, grade 3 at the South, and grade 4 at the Burke are other classrooms with sizes that are either at or approaching numbers that would get me concerned. So I just wanted to throw that out there as we're talking about this Tier 1. Getting back to the specialists, and really I wanted to focus on the performing arts specialist more than the health or PE and PE specialist. Was there a particular program that we were hoping to introduce that this performing arts staff member would work on, or was it again, when I appreciate that we're in tough times and you're identifying places where we don't have bodies, because nobody wants, the last thing we want to do is harm anybody in that regard. But there had to be, I think, a reason. You're a thoughtful guy, you're an intelligent guy, you're doing a budget that, you've spent a lot of time on. What is it that you wanted this, besides, I mean, we're not adding kids, right? We're not adding
Correct.
pupils. I understand we're putting a building back online, but was there any particular programming or enhancement of a program that you were hoping to accomplish that we can't now, or we might not be able to do now because of the budget? But what I'd like to know is what that is, so I have an understanding, and perhaps maybe an ability to support you in this regard and maybe not in another regard.
Oh, absolutely, I appreciate that. So when the center school had 4 classrooms per grade, when it was at capacity, the center school had all 4 specialists, similar to the Carroll School. Now that it is going to 2, we can have 2 people that will do, one will teach health and PE, and one will teach art and music. So the kids will get the same thing. The staff members, 2 of the staff members will teach half-time this and half-time that. So basically we're able to, instead of having 2 people, one for PE and one for health, we have one person that does 0.5 PE and 0.5 health, and the same for the performing arts area. And so that's what we're operating with this year. We have 2 people that are doing double duty, and it's working with the numbers that we have, and so we would propose to go back to that, and to continue that.
Okay, and through the mayor, so your expectation is that these 2 people would perform these 4 functions at the center school, and that the kids at the center school would receive all the services, there wouldn't be any reduction in services for any child attending
Correct.
the center school? And we have 2 staff members who are either qualified or certified to teach in both these areas
Yes.
already, so
Yep.
that,
And they're doing that this year.
Yep.
Across different schools.
Okay.
So they were previously center school employees, and so the idea would be that they would return to the center school, and that the kids would only have 2 specialist teachers, but get all 4 subjects. And the teachers would get to know them a little bit better and have them 2 days a week instead of 1 day a week.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Olympio?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vidal and your team for putting this together. And I like the approach. Thank you. I'm glad that you kind of gave us a snapshot of the way things have been operating for the past year or two since the center school went down. So I think that's important to kind of show the work, so to speak, because if you just kind of presented it with the 134 positions, then I think it would have led to more questions like, well, how did you come here? So it made things a little easier for me to interpret. To me, I mean, I'm not saying any knee-jerk reaction, but certainly the 1.2 million to kind of get us back to where we were when the center was completely online, to me, for lack of a better word, that would probably be the easiest conclusion to come to, because again, nobody's losing jobs. It's a tight budget, and to me, when it's a crazy budget like this and nobody's losing a job, at least this piece of it, to me, is pretty easy to, to vote on. So I would personally be inclined to support this the way, it's presented, this portion of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Mr. Miko?
Thank you, through the chair to Dr. Vidal. Dr. Vidal, thank you so much. This is, to what, through the chair, to what Mr. Olympio said, I can support this as well. We are basically moving jobs over. No one's really losing. This is what we've been doing for many years in cases like this. But in good conscience, and this is not on anyone here, but I do want the school committee to really think about this, because I will be bringing it up at during my ed subcommittee meeting during the regular meeting. I'm going to be asking for a motion, and I'll be asking for your support. In good conscience, I cannot cut teachers, cut paras, cut staff. And we're going to use the word cut and reduce, but we also have to look at the word spend, and we need to remind the state what they're spending money on, what they're forcing us to spend money on. And we've talked about it over and over, and the voters voted in November to eliminate MCAS as a graduation requirement. Yet the state continues to say, we're still going to do it. And no one here can defend the fact that regardless whether it's a requirement or not, it's costing us money, it's costing every district in the state money, it's costing the state money. So the state right now is saying, give that MCAS test, keep giving it, even though it really doesn't matter, but you know what? Too bad, you're going to cut 30, 40, 50 teachers. I don't even know what the number is going to be, and that's going to be across 350 communities across the state. So I am going to ask for your support later on to put a moratorium on MCAS. I don't know if that's even possible, but I want the state to come back and just say no, because I want them to say, you know what? No, the MCAS is more important than jobs. MCAS is more important than teachers. MCAS is more important than classroom sizes. Let them say no. But I'm going to support teachers. I'm going to support the working person. I'm going to support the city of Peabody.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Mrs. Dunn?
I agree with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that did confuse me, and I do want to say, under the Tier 1 reductions, I couldn't understand, not filling the 2 proposed positions which have never been staffed. We would save $150,000. Okay, I understand that. But all of these other reductions, if you're saying no one's going to lose their job, we're not saving $1.2 million. Wouldn't it be more accurate to say these are elementary, elementary reassignments or elementary corrections? I'm looking at the bottom line of our budget, and even though the people are going to be redistributed, maybe we'd say elementary redistribution, if the personnel, and if we're not cutting people, we're not saving salary, people are going back to center or here, there, and everywhere, then we're not saving $1.2 million. How am I reading this wrong?
So in the current budget, everyone who's in their current position and their current location is budgeted.
Right.
In addition to that, the center school has 24.5 FTEs that are placeholders. There's only one position that was budgeted last year in the center school. It was the clerk who stayed at the center. There's an additional 23.5 FTEs that are in this 104 number, that when we take away something from another school, this is filled. But, so there's 23 positions here, and then there's all these positions budgeted basically twice. So this 104 number is inflated because we could have kept all the teachers there and then added the center school, and that would have added this amount. But we are taking those positions back. So we could have had classrooms of 15, classrooms of 12, and that would have been wonderful, and people would have been happy about it, but that's a luxury we don't have. So we have to go back to the budget, and the reason I'm calling it a reduction is it's a reduction from the 104 to get to the 98. So we have to, so that's why it's a reduction from the proposed budget, because there's a placeholder at the center school.
Okay. It's still confusing, but Mr. Olympio's shaking his head, and he knows accounting, so I know. Because even when you said, yeah, all right, there we go. Even when you said, the center school is adding $2.25 million to the budget, to me, it isn't, because really the only increase in personnel that we really need, putting it back online, is one more principal in the district, so you have 10, because we have 10 schools. So seeing that really confused me. It just seemed really, I don't know, it's hard to explain it, because if you do understand accounting, then you know what you did. But for the vast majority of people, it's like, what do you mean? Those people, they've always been here. You're just moving them from one line, from one building to another. So I get it, but it is confusing.
I would look at it this way. Fictitious teacher, Mary Smith. She's at the McCarthy School. She makes $100,000, okay? She's in the McCarthy School budget, okay, within the McCarthy School budget. But she was a third-grade teacher at the center.
Right.
But that's also included in the budget. So it's just how I like the way it was presented, because now we want to do a reset back to when the center school was fully operational. So it's just really, so it's how you look at it. But we're making up 5.6, but maybe in 10 minutes it'll turn to 4 million, the deficit. So it's that in this example, that Mary Smith, she's just in the budget twice. So we're just, in the perfect world, if things were different and finances were different, we would love, to Dr. Vidalla's point, to have Mary Smith's sister go to the McCarthy School, and Mary Smith goes back to the center and have smaller classroom sizes. But it's just not going to happen. So that's kind of how I looked at it. So we're basically doing a reset when the center school was fully online. Did I confuse you
No,
more?
you explained it really well, because it's two different languages. The budget talks in numbers, and the vast majority of people speak in text. And so that's where the disconnect is. The explanation is different. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to follow the superintendent's recommendation of the Tier 1 list as presented in front of us.
Second.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Swanson. On the motion, Mr. Amico?
Thank you, through the chair. Do we have to take them line item by line item, position by position, or do we? I'm okay, through the chair, I'm okay with that. I just wanted to make sure what the protocol is, if anyone knows.
Yes. Words.
Okay.
Words win.
All right, so everybody's heard the motion. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Hockman.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn.
Yes.
Mr. Amico.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. So we will make those changes to the budget. We'll have that ready for Thursday. Now, moving on to Tier 2. Tier 2 is a little bit more difficult. However, I will say that we are still at the point with our retirements and with our attrition that none of these reductions will result in people losing jobs. Everyone on this list, if they're currently in a position, will be offered another position in the district. So we're still at the point tonight where we're not looking to lose jobs, but we're looking to tighten our belts. These positions, and I'll speak with them each individually, have been added to the budget to provide additional support for students and staff. Over the years, most of them were originally funded by ESSER funds, and then were then eventually rolled into the budget. And at this point, we're at a position where we can't necessarily continue to sustain that. So several years ago, the Brown School was identified as a school in need of assistance. And we identified K-2 reading and math as an additional need, and we were able to use ESSER funds to fund an additional interventionist at the school, and then last year we were able to put it in the appropriated budget. The school is no longer a school in need of assistance. They came out of that in the last accountability, which was nice. The position did its job. I would love to be able to keep this second interventionist. However, every school has one interventionist in the budget, one reading teacher, and so for the Brown to have two, it's a hard sell. So we would look to reduce that position, and then that person would take another position in the building. And I have met with that person and said that this is something that is possible. Would love to keep it, but that person could do a different job in the building and maintain her position. There'll be an open position for her. At the Burke School, we're looking at, we added a lot of special ed programming. So one of our special programs has kids that are moving from elementary to middle school next year. And so we could reduce one special ed teacher and work with the Burke staff for that special ed teacher to maybe take a position at the Higgins that would be open, or another position in the district will have open special ed positions. At the Carroll, we're looking at an additional 3 positions. So this would be basically reverting back to previous staffing levels in like 21. We had added a second counselor through ESSER funds, which was very helpful. We would look to reduce that and just have the one counselor like the other schools and reassign that counselor to another position. And then again, the same thing with ELL and special ed. We really increased those numbers over time, allocating 1 per grade at the Carroll School. With that numbers coming down, we could cover it with 1 less ELL, 1 less special ed, and we would be able to absorb those people within the district. This is a tough one, but the center school coming back online, obviously we need a principal. Having only 200 students there and having the early childhood has an administrator in charge of that program, another administrator in the building, we could not post and fill the assistant principal at the center school. It is budgeted for $132,000. If we didn't fill it, we would save that money. So that's something. We've talked about the virtual school as potential reductions every year. It was originally funded through ESSER funds. Eventually, we brought it onto the district. I think we're at the point where it's very difficult to sustain. The numbers in the elementary and middle school are very low. The high school program is working and it is successful. We have also provided a night program through the PANS funding, through stipends. That's going to have close to 20 graduates this year. So if we were to reduce the FTEs and the daytime teaching staff, we could keep the school open through stipends, and we could still continue to provide those night programs is for students who have full-time jobs, and then the teachers who are teaching in other positions could provide the support through a stipend, and that would save some money. Would love to keep the virtual school again, but where we are, I think that's a tough one to keep on because of the cost and the number of students in the school would save us about $500,000. Each of these teachers would have the opportunity to return to an in-person position somewhere in the district. So again, tier 2, a little bit harder to make some of these decisions. But again, I think this would bring us, this is about $939,000. We could take any or all, and it would reduce the district, the overall budget deficit based on what the committee feels.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. Mr. Miko.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Dr. Vidala. I just wanted to clarify, so the center school assistant principal, I get that, and I know we have great leadership there with Ms. Almeida and Ms. Charis next door. And I know you will do this if need be, if there is a need for some help from one of the administrators to slide over and then obviously keep us updated as the year goes along, because you know, the assistant principal position is an important one, but under the circumstances, I would support that for now. The 5 positions prior to that, the elementary positions that we would, initially I'll support it, but if we do get any supplemental monies coming from the state, that would be something that I would want to look at bringing back. And the PBD prep, it's been a great program, but under these circumstances, I do agree with you, although, and I did call you on this one the other day, in case of an emergency where we may have someone hospitalized or someone ill who can't make in-person education, if we can maybe provide some kind of virtual, you know, case-by-case basis, maybe with the night school or one of the teachers on a stipend or something to that effect.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Miko. I think that's an excellent point, and I would love to be able to keep the school open. If we have the night program, the school will still be a school, and we would be able to maybe not staff it with a full-time FTE, but provide people with a stipend to check in with kids if they're hospitalized or things like that. So we could maintain the school itself. However, it wouldn't be the full day program that we have. It would look a little different, but at least we keep that as a placeholder. So that would be an option to continue, and then provide that support as needed.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Open up, Mrs. Carpenter.
Thank you. Through the chair to Dr. Vidala. The prep school, this proposal is a complete elimination of the program of Peabody Prep?
So just the day portion of it,
It would still
with
have
the full-time
PANs.
teachers, we would still have PANs.
Yes.
And so it would be the full-time FTEs that are solely dedicated to that. So under this proposal, everybody would be an in-person teacher, and then anyone who's working in the district could get a stipend to work at night, like a coaching
The
salary.
PANs. And then the kids that are currently in this program, do they have the option, I believe, unless you tell me I'm wrong, that there's an option still for them to attend a virtual school. It's just not Peabody's. I think there is Tech and another one, GCVS.
Yes.
They could go there.
Greenfield Virtual, yes.
Right?
Yeah, so there are options if they wanted them. They're Commonwealth virtual schools. They'd be run by the state. If they were a high school student and they could apply to PANS, so the majority of the students enrolled are high school students. So those students would have the option to either come back to one of our in-person programs or to enroll at the night program. The middle and elementary students would either come back in person or attend one of the Commonwealth virtual schools. And the high school kids would have that option as well. It's not our best option, but they would all have options, and we'd work with them individually.
So just to clarify, they all have an option to still not have to enter the building if they do not, or they cannot?
Correct.
With
Yes.
us somehow or another, through these other schools or through our night program, right?
Yes, they do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Mr. Hockman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you again, Dr. Vidala and your team. At this point in this budget process, I believe I could support the assistant principal at the center school with the understanding, as Mr. Amico discussed, if that is a need for it, we're going to revisit it. I can also, my feelings on the prep are well known. I believe in recovery programs. I believe in night programs. I believe that everyone should have an opportunity, regardless of their circumstances, to have an opportunity to receive a high school diploma or its equivalent. I never thought the prep was a good idea. I think kids need to be, or people need to be around people. We learned that through COVID. We learned about the social, emotional impact that keeping people isolated causes. There are other circumstances that people have that utilize the prep, but we also do have the school, Peabody Learning Academy, and we do have other options available. So I think that there are options available for students that are attending the Peabody prep. I do want to be clear that there are 5 staff members currently working through the prep that will be either offered or have other opportunities within the district. So we're not talking about a reduction in staff. We're just talking about a change in the format or the platform for the education, right? Okay, so I certainly can support that. With regard to the other 5 FTEs, it looks like, excuse me, 5 FTEs. I can't, at this point in these in this conversation, for the reasons that a lot of my colleagues think that the prep is necessary, I can't support a reduction in a counselor. I can't support a reduction in an ELL teacher or a special education teacher or at the Carroll School, a population that, although is going to reduce because kids are returning to the center school, that's not what we're talking about in these reductions. We're talking about a change in the services that would have been available 23, 24, not changes that are present in 24, 25, because there are extra students at the Carroll because of the center school's one-year hiatus. Same thing with the Burke, special education teacher. We're going to talk about some of those programs, I think, in further tiers as we talk about it. But I know it's important to all of us that we have people in the classrooms, teachers, qualified people in the classrooms, qualified people in the buildings who are able to support kids. And those 5 FTEs, to me, it's too early in this process to consider them. Okay? So, and is this, by the way, or is this what you're hoping to discuss tonight, are these Tier 1 and Tier 2 reduction or
Yes,
changes?
and then once we finish the discussion on Tier 2, spend a little bit of time just understanding what the committee would like me to bring for the other 3 areas of middle, high school, and district-wide, and I'll price that out for Thursday, but having a discussion about what are some of the things that we would like to bring for Thursday's meeting to really dive into, and what are some backup that you would like. So for Tier 2, again, this is, we're throwing a lot out there, so if we wanted to take it line by line, or if we wanted, and we don't have to propose any of it tonight. Whatever the committee is comfortable with, and that'll just update us and reduce the number. So, I'd love to hear from everyone, and then, we can take anything off of this or anything on it, and just go through the process.
Yeah, no, thank you. And you and I, we talked a little yesterday, but we haven't had a chance to, I haven't had the time to give to you to sit down and talk budget yet, but I just want to kind of express a thought so that it's out there, and I think you know this, I think everybody. These 5 FTEs that you're talking about, where it's a reading interventionist and a special ed teacher and a counselor, and those are, for me, district-wide reductions, because those kids are going to filter up. And as they filter up, if they don't receive the services that they need while they're in the earlier grades, and you know this, and I know you support this, and I'm not, but that's, again, I just want to provide some of the rationale for why I'm not really prepared to support these at this time. It may never, but we'll see when we get to the crunch.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Swanson?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Dr. Vidal and his staff. Appreciate the way this has been formatted tonight. I'm going to agree with Mr. Hockman. I think the principal and the prep, I'm ready to support and vote on those. The others, I agree. These are support positions that do have a trickle-down effect, as well as we know that our schools, even though we're moving students around, we know our students and our staff are stressed as they are. These are ones that alleviate some of that and then prepare our students for the future. I do have one question on the principal. As I was coming into the committee was when we were seating all the vice principals and assistant principals throughout the elementary schools. If you could go back in history and help me out with just an understanding of when a principal does not have an assistant principal but is not able to be in the building that day, how is that filled? How is that role filled? Who steps up to help out with the day-to-day operations in that building? Thank you.
So right now, we have a principal and assistant principal at a minimum in every school, so this would be a little different. There have been times where both had to be out for one reason, and if it's just a one day, Dr. Higgins or one of our district-wide directors, Ms. Crompton, someone will go to the building and be the administrator of the day, and we also typically pull a teacher and give them a walkie, and they can be administrator for the day. So we provide the coverage, typically with people who are familiar with the students and familiar with the staff, and so it's not an ideal situation, but it's not uncommon. So it happens, and most of our principals don't miss too many school days as is, but there are trainings and there are sickness and things happen. So we do plan for that. And as Mr. Amico said, we would probably have different people rotate in to be a second body one day a week and sort of put their office there and station themselves there, just so that there's another set of eyes and set of hands there as well.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And there is the ability to support the building when the principal has to be out. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mr. Olympio.
I would like to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent for Tier 2 to reduce the Center School 1 FTE as presented and Peabody Prep 5.0 FTEs as presented.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mr. Amico. On the motion, Mr. Amico, you had your hand raised earlier. Then I'll go to you, Ms. Dunn.
Through the chair, yes, I had two quick questions. One on the virtual school, how many students total were impacted or will be moving back? And the second question was, I'll have to think about what it was. One at a time, please.
Sure. So on the virtual school, there are currently 131 students enrolled. 109 of them are high school students. So of those high school students, that includes our PANS program as well. Those students would have that. The other 22 are grades 4 through 8 this year.
Remember my second question. And again, I agree with Mr. Hockman and Mr. Swanson on this, that I do not want to see those positions cut, those 5. But I do think, under the circumstances, tonight's going to be the easier of the 2 nights. And it's not easy. I would propose that we move forward with the recommendation of the superintendent. And I said it earlier, if we have supplemental monies coming back in any shape or form, that we reinstate those positions. And if someone already said that, I apologize. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but I just for the being able to move to day 2, which is going to be Thursday night and is going to be a more difficult, longer night. We're going to be making some very difficult decisions that night as well. I'm just thinking outside the box. We trim now. We keep those in a bucket on the side, and if we do have supplemental cash coming in, we reinstate those. And the sun is in my eyes, so I can't see anyone, so I apologize. I'm just thinking outside the box here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the questions that I was going to ask is, Mr. Amico asked it, what was the number of high school students in the Peabody Prep? And that program, and we have heard from students at presentations and have asked them, why do you go to the prep? They've been very honest. Some of them it was because someone at home was sick and they couldn't come to school. But the vast majority of the students who have talked to us about going to the prep because of bullying. And I'm going to be really honest with you. If we don't have some kind of a program to take care of the bullying in the district that would help students to stay in school, I can't support cutting the prep, because I think it's serious enough, and have heard that from enough students, that I do think that we owe it to everyone to take care of that. If it is rising to a level where you've got that many I won't say all of them are there, there is a personal reason for each person, but we have to do something about it. So I won't support cutting that until I know that there's something going to take care of the students. The other question that I have is the assistant principal. Do we have a full-time assistant principal at every elementary school? My understanding was we were only going to do a full-time, non-teaching assistant principal if the population of the school went over 400. So when did that change? Now do we have basically 10 full-time assistant principals who are not teaching? It was usually, just to be general, the fifth grade teacher always seemed to be the person that would fill in for the principal. But then the population at our schools got so high, that became a contractual issue. Is it no longer that case?
So the current elementary assistant principals, the 400 is a salary differential.
Okay.
So, and those were the schools that were always relieved of teaching duties. And I think it was 3 years ago, we went to a more instructional coach / assistant principal position at the smaller schools. So they would be out of the classroom so they could deal with more discipline and more instructional support and things like that. So the elementary assistant principals do not have teaching duties, but they have more instructional leadership, coaching, and supporting discipline and mental health.
Okay, and that would be at every school with the exception of Center?
The center would be the only one next year that would not have that. But I think where we are now, and it's not filled, we could pause for a year because of the small enrollment,
Yeah.
and the district would try to support the principal, as much as we can.
Okay, I understand that, thank you. And then the other discussion, and Mr. Rico and Mr. Hockman both spoke about this. I can't in good conscience cut staff at the Carroll Elementary School because it's twice the size of every other elementary school in the district. So that just means, to me, you need additional help in that building. If you've got an elementary school with one counselor and they're taking care of 200 students, and you've got another elementary school with close to 600 and you've got one counselor, it's not equitable, it doesn't make sense, it really seems to be asking for trouble. So the Carroll School actually does need additional staff on those specials. So I wouldn't be able to support that as well. So if we go through tier 2, I would ask if we could go line by line to take the vote as opposed to putting them all together.
Thank you, and I fully support that. I don't want to cut any of these positions, and so I appreciate this. I think the motion from Mr. Olympio that we're still discussing is just for the assistant principal and the virtual school teachers. It's limited to that and not the other 5. So we could certainly hold that and not bring it up after after this vote if the committee wants to vote on just these 2 portions of it.
Would you mind amending it and do each one separately? I can support one and I can't support the other. Thank you.
So, Dr. Vidal, so get back, so Ms. Dunn brings up the whole bullying aspect in the virtual school. Those particular kids would have other options, would they not? Like, what, could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, and so
Just, it's important for the public to know, too.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we would want to welcome the kids back, make sure that we connect them with our counselors, make sure that, we have a strong anti-bullying policy and, a sense of belonging. So we would want to welcome those students in, but we would also work with the families individually if they did not want to come back in person, that we would work with them, as Ms. Carpenter said, that there are other options if we were not able to offer. Very similar to, you may recall, we welcomed in students from, Beverly and Salem at one time at a fee, and the state said that was not allowed anymore, and so they asked us to stop that. So Beverly and Salem worked with their students to find alternative options. We would do the same thing. So ideally, we wanted the kids to feel welcome, feel safe, and, you know, we would try to support that. And, you know, we've had kids that have left the virtual school and come back and been very successful. So, you know, we've helped successfully transition students back, and we would try to do that as well. But if it's not something that they want to do, we would support them in whatever decision their family wanted to make.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Dunn? All set, okay. And through the chair to Mr. Olympio, if you could amend that motion, and then I
Well-
have Mr. Hockman who wants to weigh in
Yeah,
on the
well,
motion as well.
I'll amend my motion just to follow the recommendation of the superintendent under Tier 2 reduction for center school for 1.0 FTEs. And we can certainly, I'm not in any hurry to get through everything, but this is going to be really tough. And we can certainly, I'm okay with tabling the PBD prep, but as we weed through all of this, I would challenge us this. If we're going to take a stand and say, we're not going to cut this, we're not going to cut that, and I think none of us want to do that, but we have to come up with a solution. If there was somebody on this committee that said, okay, you know, and there's really no wrong answers. I'm for the prep. Well, we have to come up with $500,000. Where are we getting that 500? So I think as we look at positions that we want to keep and schools that need the extra attention, I can appreciate that. But I think the productive way going forward and in the future meetings is if you're going to stand for something, we have to have a solution. We have to say, okay, I want this position, but this is where we're going to get it from. So there has to be a plus and a minus, because or else we'll never get done. I think all of us would want a $104 million budget, and we could all go home. But we have to, if we're going to propose, okay, we're for something, we really at some point, I'm not saying that's the first thing you have to say, but as we get closer to getting done, we have to say, well, this is what we have to take away in order to accomplish a consensus. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn, and thank you, Mr. Olympio. And these are positions that we value. These are positions that we've supported. Most of us have been here for many, many years. We've supported these positions. We've put these positions in place through our committee and through our superintendent. So when we do make cuts, it's not because we don't value them, it's because we don't have the funding to support these moving forward. So as Mr. Olympio said, it is going to be difficult, and I appreciate you, Ms. Dunn, for advocating, as always, for our teachers and staff, and it's going to be very difficult. Mr. Hockman, sorry.
No, thank you. I'm appreciating the discussion that's going on. Through you to Ms. Dunn, I just wanted to talk about the assistant principal history. I think it was about 8 years ago or so that the contracts, I think it's Unit B, or maybe it might have been Unit A, I'm not sure, B, that delineated the need for a full-time assistant principal when an elementary school exceeded 400 students. I think during the Vidala administration, and to be fair, COVID kicked in and we needed additional supports, we just went across the board and got assistant principals in each of the elementary schools. So all 8 elementary schools have had full-time, non-teaching assistant principals for about 4 or 5 years, something like that. And I agree with you, you know, under the circumstances where the population of the center school appears to be about half of that benchmark of 400, I can support, and knowing Ms. Almeida is an experienced principal, and I'm assuming she's comfortable with this as well, I can support this. But, and I can say when we started with full-time assistant principals at schools that were under 400, I was opposed to it, and I was wrong. You know, I think it's turned out to be valuable to the district. I think it provides those other supports that we do need. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of put the historical context in place.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor. It was second, and we need a roll call vote to, I seconded and I stepped over here, so I don't know if that still counts. So, Mr. Hockman, if you would second that?
Second.
Second. And we can have further discussion. If not, we'll have a roll call vote to. Yep, can we just clarify that? Thank you.
And just to be clear, this is just to reduce the center school assistant principal 1.0 FTE. Okay, just that one line.
Thank you. Ms. Bowe, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
And I would vote yes. Mr. Hockman?
Make a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to eliminate 5 FTEs from Peabody Prep. So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hockman to.
Second.
To eliminate the virtual school Peabody Prep, seconded by Mr. Swanson. On the motion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
No.
I would vote yes. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you. Before we move on to the next phase of the meeting, it looks like we have accomplished $1,847,394. Is that accurate? We all have the same numbers?
That's the number I have.
Mr. Rippon?
So I currently have a total budget of $102,405,036. Yes. So 1.847394, which then results in a current proposed budget of 102,405,36.
And the mark we're looking to make is 98.6?
98.6.
Even?
Ish. 552.
I'm sorry, 98 million.
$98,600,552.
Thank you.
You all set? Mr. Hockman, you still have the floor.
No, thank you. Thank you for the time.
Ms. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent to reduce the 1.0 reading teacher interventionist in the Burke Elementary School, 1.0 special ed teacher. As we've been told, the programs are no longer in need of those staffing. They'll be moved to other places. So moved.
Motion by Ms. Dunn to eliminate the one special ed teacher at the Burke Elementary School.
Second.
Second by Mr. Swan. Discussion? Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Amico. I see in the notes that this reduction is a result of students going to the Higgins. Is this a particular program, or is it, what is this special ed teacher, what's their functions?
Yes, so we have 11 students in the 5th grade that are rising to, we had a bubble, and so we could, with the students remaining and the students that we're anticipating coming up from pre-K, particularly in our Milestones program, we could service all of those students with one less teacher, and that teacher would then travel to the Higgins to be able to service the kids.
Thank you. So, is this similar to the Tier 1 type reduction, that we're not losing a staff member, they're just changing buildings?
Yes, yeah, it would be similar to, it would have a similar impact to the staff. at the elementary school, yes.
So is this, but this is different, because this doesn't, if I look at the Higgins budget, am I gonna see that there's an addition of one FTE for?
No, we'll be able to absorb it with the current. There'll be a position for this person to go to, but it won't increase the FTEs at the Higgins because of the same thing, the matriculation of students in and out. You know, we have enough, there'll be an open position for the person to be in, but we wouldn't have to add the FTE to the Higgins.
Thank you, I understand what you're saying. So we're adding to the caseload for the Higgins special education, because we're adding at least these 11 kids. I know it's a lot more coming, and I don't know how many are moving on to the high school or other schools yet, which is one of the reasons I wasn't comfortable with this. And that's fine, you know, I'm one member, and I just don't have enough information at this point to understand how this impacts student services, how this impacts staff caseloads and things like that. So, you know, again, for those reasons, I would vote against this, but it may, in the end, be something that is something I could support. I just can't without the information right now.
Yep, and so, you know, I can share that, you know, I can get that information for Thursday night. I did speak with Shannon Crompton, the special ed director, and you know, this was a recommendation that, based on the proposed numbers that will be at the Burke and the proposed numbers that will be at the Higgins, we'll be able to accommodate this. But I can get those numbers for you, because I think that'll be better.
Yeah, and to be fair to you and your staff, I'm confident that you spoke to all the right people. I'm just, you know, and got, you know, information. I'm not suggesting that you pulled this out of a hat or anything arbitrary. I just, for me, I need that information before I can make an informed vote.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Swanson?
Thank you. Through to Dr. Vidal. Just for my clarity, so there's going to be a positioning opening up in the Higgins that the special ed teacher will fill, so there'll be a -1 at the elementary level and a 0 increase at the Higgins level?
That is
So
correct. Yep, so that's correct. And so we would work with all the teachers at the Burke. It's not that someone is being forced. We work with them and say, we have this opening, is there someone who wants to volunteer for it? It's typically how we do the transfer process. So it's not, we don't necessarily have identified the person that would do it, but there would be options within that.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Dunn?
I'll withdraw the motion to allow time for the information Mr. Hockman's looking for, if that would help.
It's certainly, I appreciate the courtesy, and I would appreciate that.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn.
Okay, I'll withdraw that. Thank you.
Motion withdrawn. Thank you. Mr. Hockman?
While we're on that, I just want to, if I may, through you to Mr. Swanson, I think I'm not sure I understand what you were asking or what response you got. I think you were asking, is this person going to then move up to the Higgins and take on the responsibilities of a special ed teacher at the Higgins? Is that what you were asking?
Through the chair, I was asking if that person moves up, is there a position, will there be a position open at the Higgins for somebody to move into so that we have a net 0 at the Higgins level? My assumption was they were taking on responsibilities when they moved up, but I wanted to make sure that we had a reduction at the elementary level and a 0 increase at the Higgins level for positions, FTEs.
My understanding, and Dr. Vidal is right here, we're talking in front of him, of the response that when I asked that position, this person who's filling this position, whatever staff member this is at the Burke, will have a position within the district, but not necessarily in the capacity of taking care of the potential additional caseload at the Higgins. They would have a function in the district as a teacher, I imagine somewhere in some building, but not necessarily the Higgins. If this was a 1-for-1, in other words, if we were reducing the Higgins, the Burke staff member because we see that bubble filtering up and we were creating a position at the Higgins, and it would be a net 0 to the budget, I mean, it's something we wouldn't need to talk about, right? Because we don't deal with personnel. That's Dr. Vidala's purview. We don't get to say where he puts staff members. But I don't think that that's what's happening here. I think that Dr. Vidala is proposing that we reduce this position, not the person. So in other words, the person will maintain a position within the district. We don't know what that is, and we don't get a say on that at this point, unless it's a budgetary issue.
So I can clarify that on Thursday. Yeah. It sounds, yeah, we'll get all the numbers and the programs and all of that, and, you know, we'll provide that clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman, and thank you, Mr. Swanson. And we do have to be mindful that, you know, in any time, in any year, whether we have a positive budget or one like we have now, non-renewals, retirements, movement of people are always possible. And again, as Mr. Hockman said, a lot of those are at the purview of the superintendent. So, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Swanson.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification of the questions to clarify. I was in the exception that this, and I agree with the personnel is the superintendent's responsibility and within his purview. And I appreciate the questions to clarify. Maybe I made some assumptions that there is going to be an FTE within the special ed position at the Higgins was my question. So thank you for those clarifications. We'll wait for Thursday for additional data. Thank you.
Mr. Swanson. I forgot where we were. Did we get the vote on that one?
We paused it. We withdrew the motion.
We withdrew the motion. Okay, so I'll open it up to the committee or to the superintendent, Dr. Vidal, if you wanted to continue.
Sure, and so as I would see this, I think that we've exhausted the discussion on this current sheet. And so as Mr. Hockman mentioned, the reductions that were voted tonight total $1,847,394. The current proposed budget would be $102,405,036. So that's
Yeah, so I'm sorry, so the
$3.8.
$3,804,484 is the disconnect.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I just handed the committee is just an excerpt from previous emails that I've sent. The top part is the slide. It was actually the first slide, just typed out, where we got to the 104 number, and then sort of the bucketed list of items that we have talked about over time. So we've talked quite a bit tonight about the elementary and the virtual school. There is one of the administrators that's on this list. In the middle, high school, paras, administrators, if there are things on this list that you want specific documents on, or details, or, you know, enrollments and class sizes and things like that, you know, I can price out, you know, any and all. This is not an exhaustive list. It probably would total more than we need. One thing I will say is tonight we reduced 22.5 FTEs. In the current proposed budget, the number of FTEs that are proposed was 31.5 more than FY25. So if we take out that 22.5 FTEs, we're currently at 9 positions more than we have this year. Any reductions we make beyond those 9, like once we get to the point of the same number of level FTEs, any position we reduce below that, we would reduce the salary plus an additional $20,000 from the health insurance line. So speaking with the city, the health insurance number that we're basing this year's budget on is based on the FY25 number of FTEs. So anything below the FY '25 number of FTEs, in addition to the salary reduction, we would also get a reduction on the health insurance. So I can as we get to that point, I will be able to price that out and include that, but we won't do that until we get to that number. So, if we want to just have a discussion of things that the committee would like to see for Thursday, I would be happy to start to compile that list.
Mr. Olympio?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vidala. I think what might be helpful is, I mean, you have some suggestions. If to the best of your ability, if we can maybe look at some of these suggestions you have and have a, a number with some of those items it'll obviously help. Because what I'm afraid of too is there's some suggestions here, and back of the envelope type of calculations, I don't think it even gets us, it still won't get us to where we want to be, but it'll certainly be helpful if we have just, some of these suggestions are helpful, just if we can price those out. In this way, the committee will just kind of know, where, the progress.
Sure, and I believe in the back of your binder, some of them are already in there that I
Okay.
provided. I can look at that. Okay, so if you go to the very last couple pages, there are some price points that we could talk about, but I could certainly get more backup and things like that. This was something I started to provide, I think, about a month ago. But it's a similar format, but I can update it in detail. So you could see some of the middle and high school potential reductions, and then we can add or subtract. But those were just sort of back of the napkin type things.
No, that'd be really helpful. I appreciate that because, right now we're 3.8 and, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's just going to be tough. But certainly if we can have a general sense, a more specific sense of, what some of these impacts might be to the budget as far as dollars goes, then it's just sort of the run and tally, where we need to end up, and that'd be very helpful.
I agree with you, Mr. Olympio. If you, if we could almost have like a menu setup where position, line item, and value of that position monetarily, that would be great. Thank you. Ms. Carpenter, please.
Thank you. I was just kind of skipping around a little bit, and I had a question. I'm just confused, and it might just be the setup of it. In the district-wide administration tab, it's 22. It's line number 22025.
Yes.
And then district-wide administration. There's a huge jump.
Huge number.
Yeah. Can you
Yes.
tell me about that?
Yes, so in previous years, it was under the salary reserve line, which if you see is 22017. That was the line that we used for negotiations before, and so it hasn't been in the past 3 years. So that is zeros above.
Yep.
The way that this budget was built, a new line was created for that purpose, and so that number there represents the number for negotiations. So it's not budgeted in the salaries, but if all of those things put together, that would be all of the COLAs and the impact of negotiations as a placeholder, that number. So we previously put it, I think, in a previous budget in a salary reserve line. It's just in that non-budgeted line. It's just named something different this year. But that's what that number is.
Okay.
So on my original PowerPoint that you saw, I'll just put it up. So
It's
everybody can
listed
see.
under,
So when we see this negotiation line, the difference between this number and that number
Yep.
is the line that's budgeted.
okay.
So that's what that is, and so that's why it's such a big number.
Geez, I was hoping I found a few million there.
I wish you did. I wish you
Who do you
did.
think you are, John Olympio? Ms. Carpenter, you all set? Okay, Mr. Swanson, please.
Thank you. Through Dr. Vidala, you have on this write-up, and then the wire in the back of our binder, you have a couple that says increased class sizes. To the point we had earlier about impact, could you provide us, as you're going through it and putting the cost against these, could you provide us the impacts as well, so that we can make some?
Yeah, so the current class sizes and then the proposed.
Please.
As we move forward.
Okay, yeah, and I know as you get into high school, it can be a little harder, but for the clusters and whatnot.
Yeah, but we could say
definitely.
average class size for a history class.
Yes.
And then what would it be if there was a reduction in that department, or
Yeah,
whatever it may be?
I appreciate
Yep,
that.
I can do
Thank
that,
you.
absolutely.
And then only one more, sorry. As you're going through, and we're making a lot of work for you and staff, for the Carroll Elementary, we can flip, but I think you're making the menu, so I'm gonna ask, could you break out each of those as line items? So if you have a multiple on tier 2, could you provide those as line items within that? So again, we don't want to, but if we have to, we can go after, review them as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson, and I apologize, I had to step out. I had to attend a meeting down the street, and want to make sure I got back here as quickly as I could. I appreciate Mr. Amico running the meeting in my absence for that time. And I'm not sure where we left off, but Mr. Amico, I'll turn over to you, and then Mr.
Sure. I just have one item, and then before we wrap up, if we can just get a rundown and a review for everyone, that would be great too as well. But I do want, making these cuts and trying to save positions and jobs just got me thinking about, and Ms. Dunn has said this in the past through the chair, where in the past, you come down to literally trying to save jobs by eliminating supplies or eliminating maintenance or eliminating things that you have to do to buildings. And this is why, for those who sometimes question why buildings aren't kept up or buildings do deteriorate or why things break, it's because, in good conscience, this school committee has continued to support teachers, continued to support staff and people and bodies, and we will spend money saving jobs before anything else. And I think anyone in our position would be better suited to do so. That's the ultimate thing, is to keep jobs. And we will be making some decisions on possibly materials and supplies and other things, but that's just, one of the reasons why sometimes these buildings do, their shelf life isn't what they should be, because, we're in the business of people and saving jobs. And if we had extra funding, we could do other things, but sometimes we can't. But I just wanted to throw that out there, because I am reminded of some of the things that Ms. Dunn has said over the past in regards to that, where it's about people before anything else. So, and I think this committee is well poised to do that over the next week or so.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Go to Mr. Hockman, then I'll come back to you, Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dr. Vidala. The administrator position that you have on this list for Director of Teaching and Learning for STEM, is that currently an open position?
Yes, that is a position that we haven't filled
And how long has that been open? About?
this school year. So we filled it with a retired, we've filled it with a retired administrator from Peabody, and paid a per diem rate a few days a week, but it didn't have the full salary.
Thank you. And I think that this person would fall under Dr. Chase's supervision. So maybe for Thursday, we can get a better understanding as to this position. And then also, I've talked in the past, do we still have, we have an integrated preschool and we have PASOS. And do we still have a director of each program that are independent?
Yes, and both directors are paid out of their revolving accounts. They're not paid out of the appropriated budget.
So neither one of them?
Neither one would result in an impact from this budget.
That's, respectfully, that's not right? I mean, because if we had more revolving money that was staying within and not being paid for a salary, it would be able to be used by either the program for supplies or for staff members or other things, but it does, I understand what you're saying is that we don't see it in
Correct.
this budget, but it may have an impact on the budget itself, because we could offset a salary with other expenses that are within the budget. So I'd like to see what that looks like for Thursday, and including what it looks like in terms of the number of students in each program, the number of staff members in each program, how that relates to other administrators in terms of the number of people that they supervise. And I believe I know there are multiple locations, so that there's some challenges there, but if we can, maybe by Thursday if you can, if not for a future meeting, but hopefully by Thursday.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mrs. Dunn?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things. One, could we also have a list of all the grants that come into the district and what those cover? That would be great. The other thing that I wanted to say is, and yes, I have said for years about the difficulties we've faced with budgets, but I do want to make sure people understand, and I honestly want to say thank you to Mayor Betancourt, because the difficult decisions faced years ago, where we were faced with, well, you can fix this building, or you can hire a teacher. When you put that type of an issue in front of a school committee member, it is so difficult, because we're in the business not so much of jobs, we're in the business of educating children. So those decisions were very, very difficult and led to many of the things that we are now and have been addressing with the buildings. And it's been a long road. It's still going on, but I appreciate what we've been able to do with our facilities in these past several years. And I just want people to understand that things are different, that we are working to improve the buildings. It can't be done overnight. And we are still faced with the difficult decision of making sure we have enough staff to take care of our children. And I'm afraid that what's coming now with the funding, with what's going on at the federal level, people need to understand this is going to be very, very difficult, and they should look at what's happening to education and try to understand where the difficulty comes in. We've made a lot of progress. We really and truly have. Staying here till 2 a.m. counting the number of pencils and paint and light bulbs, way in the past. Way in the past. But I can point to different areas where we were faced with really hard decisions, and we came down on the side of education. And I'm going to stand up and say that was the right thing to do. It really was. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. All right, any other comments at this time? Any additional information? Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you. Not particularly about the budget itself, but I know we have a deadline. And I sent an email out asking for scheduling some additional budget meetings, and I know I'm not looking to make us work any more than we need to, and I'm certainly not looking to put any fear or apprehension in the public or anyone else. But I also understand that we have obligations in terms of posting, and we have laws that we need to comply with in terms of how we meet, and we can cancel meetings. And I'm hoping that we're scheduling meetings, that we do schedule meetings so that we have the ability to meet and cancel them as necessary. So I think what I put out there is, I know we have a meeting scheduled for May 15th. I'd like to schedule a meeting schedule meetings for 4 additional dates, and I understand that Ms. Dunn has asked for those meetings to all start after 5 PM, which is, I agree with. Those dates would be May 19, May 21, May 22, and May 26. And I also understand that this is an incredibly busy time for all of us, with all of the activities that are taking place at graduations, moving ons, both here in Peabody Public Schools and other locations where we have children or family members who are graduating from colleges or other institutions. But I think that it's prudent that we schedule those meetings just so we have the opportunity.
And what were those dates again, Mr. Hockman?
So May 19, 21, 22, and 26. And I believe that that's in addition to meetings that are already scheduled for May 15, May 20, and May 27. And May 27 is that deadline. May 27 is the deadline that I talked about being the public hearing, the expectation for the public hearing, which I think by law requires 10 days' notice. So we're going to have to put that out there fairly quickly for the public hearing, which really exacerbates, I think, the need to post for those other days.
I believe that was posted today for the 27th,
Yeah.
because that is the deadline.
Yeah.
So I believe that was posted today, and we have that, we've met that obligation.
And I'm sure we did. I wasn't questioning that. I was just, it hit me in the thought that we don't have the ability to go beyond that because of other, the city council and other things that obligations that we have to meet. So that's why I'm asking for these additional days, just so we have the opportunity to meet if we need to.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman.
I'll second that.
Yeah, what I propose, go ahead, Mr. Miko.
Chair, to Mr. Hockman, the 26th is Memorial Day. I don't know if we can really meet on Memorial Day evening.
You're right, Mr. Miko, I withdrew.
Can we
Memorial Day.
meet on the 27th, even though it is the deadline? We can meet prior to the public hearing to continue if we need to.
I'd be
correct?
okay with posting, the public hearing is posted for 7 PM. I'd be okay posting a 5 o'clock budget meeting, or if we, that may be the day
Yeah.
that we breach Ms. Dunn's request for 5 PM, and maybe we post a 4 PM meeting just in case.
I'll pick you up.
What I propose is, I propose we do this. We have to give 48 hours notice to any meeting. I propose that we set up a meeting for the 21st, reserve that date. Come Thursday, as we're working our way through, I anticipate that's going to be a long meeting. We can kind of gauge where we're at, and then we should have sufficient time with only the 48-hour requirement. So then we can look at those other dates. I know the academic awards night is the 22nd as well, so that's a little tricky. But I think Mr. Hockman's point is a good one, that we should have some dates reserved. So I propose, right now we have the 15th and the 22nd. I propose we add the 21st. Ask Marge to post the 21st. And that's the 20, oh, I'm sorry, the 19th, I'm sorry. Let me take a step back, please. Sorry. Right now, we have the 15th set up, as well as the 20th. I propose we set up the 19th, that Monday. So we would have Thursday this week, Monday, Tuesday set up for next week. We see how we are on Thursday, and then we look at those additional dates, Wednesday the 21st, Thursday the 22nd, or maybe other dates as well to make sure we meet that 27th. But we would have, come Thursday, we would still have the time with that 48-hour notice to get out those additional dates. So if everybody's okay with that, Superintendent and I will have Marge post for the 19th, lock that date in, so we have 3 dates set up. And like I said, on this Thursday, we'll reevaluate where we're at and likely set up some additional dates. Does that work for everybody? 5 o'clock on the 19th?
Yeah. So with that, I don't think we need a motion for that. We're going to get that done. I'm going to move to recess the budget meeting.
Yep. Okay, thank you, everyone. Before we break, Mr.
Could we
Miko?
just get a rundown of the subtractions and where we stand, just so we can have that documented? Thank you.
Thank you. So the committee voted to approve all Tier 1 reductions, including Brown Elementary School general ed teachers in grades 1 and 3, Carroll School elementary teachers in grades K, 3, and 5, 1 ELL teacher, 1 special ed teacher, and 1 kindergarten para, Carroll Elementary. McCarthy School, reducing the reading teacher and the guidance counselor that were added this year. 4 elementary teachers at the South in grades 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1 elementary teacher at the West, which is grade 1, and 2 elementary specialists that were budgeted, 1 in health and PE and 1 in performing arts. In addition, in Tier 2, at the center school, the reduction of 1 assistant principal and 5 PBD prep virtual school teachers, totaling 22.5 FTEs and $1,847,394.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mr. Hockman?
I'm glad we haven't voted on that recess yet. I just wanted to make a point. I know Dr. Vidala talked about the FTEs for staff members, and I think we were 9 more now than we were in the proposed budget than in the current school year. And you talked about the salary plus $20,000 or so for benefits. But at the same time, I think we're gonna, if we get beyond that number, that 9, we then have greater exposure for unemployment. So we will need to, and we might need to increase that line if we get there, and I hope we don't. I think we all hope we don't, but I just wanted that thrown out there. It's not a straight salary plus 20. It's a salary plus 20 minus some number.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hockman. All right, motion to adjourn until Thursday, or recess to Thursday, May 15th at 5 p.m., right here at the Higgins Middle School Library. All right, thank you, everyone.